welcome folks to our Bible at Home for the week following October 25th. We are in the 21st Sunday after Pentecost, or in our Lutheran tradition, the Reformation Sunday. This week we are talking about David becomes king. David is one of those characters, those people in the story that are important. His reign is about 1,000 years before the time of Jesus, and pretty much the entire 2 Samuel deals with David's kingship, whatever. And about half of Samuel is about David becoming king. And we are going to be in 2 Samuel. We're going to begin with chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. And this is the pronouncement of David as king. Early on, after Saul's death, Judah and Benjamin declare David king, but it's about 7 years before the other 10 tribes come and say to David, you know, we're your kin, we're your flesh and blood, we want you to be our king. So he unites all the tribes under his leadership, and God has chosen David. That's one of the things we learned back in 1 Samuel. One of the things you might hear about is David has a heart like God. God looks at David's heart. And this begins now that the second kingship of the united Israel, and a bit of a golden age. And one of the things that makes David such a great king is this unity that he creates. He had started at Hebron. Now there's a story in between at the end of chapter 5 there where he captures Jerusalem, the one city that had been left from the time of the conquest, and he makes Jerusalem the capital city. So everyone has this place in common, and it becomes called the City of David because David captured it. And one of the things David does is he wants to bring God's presence in among the people. And to do that, he goes and he gets the Ark of the Covenant, which has been somewhere else outside of the city, kind of being cared for, hanging out. And David brings it into Jerusalem. In fact, I was struck by, it said the ark which has the name of the Lord. So there's that name thing again. We were just talking a little bit today in group. So if any of you can join us by Zoom, and we might be switching to our format, but on Wednesdays at 10:30, I'll post it on the site here. Just click on the Zoom and come and join our the little discussion about this on Wednesday. And so this name of the Lord, and you've probably seen pictures of the ark, and the ark was thought to be kind of God's easy chair, or God's I'm trying to think of the name, with the kings when they were carried around by people in a chair. I mean, it was thought that God's presence was right above the ark. So whenever the ark moved, God's presence would move. And David is so excited about doing this that he joins the procession, dancing. We like to say dancing in his underwear. He's so excited. This dance of joy as they bring the ark into the city. And one of the things is, though, that there's a little mishap because it's not being carried. It's actually on a wagon. And when they get near this threshing floor that's up on a high hill, there's an accident that happens, and somebody dies because they touch the ark. And but that threshing floor later on in David's story becomes very important, and actually does become the place where the temple is built. But he puts the ark in a tent. And then the other reading we have here, besides chapter 6, verses 1 through 5, which I just talked to you about, is Psalm 150. This is the last psalm of our Psalter. And this psalm reflects that procession. It's a very short psalm, but I invite you to read it. It's kind of this idea of the procession ending, and they are at the temple. They are where they need to be, and they are blowing the trumpet, the tambourine, the cymbal, all the joy and noise that is made because God's presence is there among them. Humans, we like the noise. God seems to like the silence. So very important, though, that this is the story in Mark's story, or in this story, we see David is declared king. And I'm just curious as we go through this and approach the Gospel of Mark here, back now when we get to the new year, how these stories are building to Mark's Gospel. This emphasis on names and just kind of a thought, that just something to keep looking at. This seems to be a thread, this thread of the names that's going through. And since we are so close to our own election of our own leadership, I invite you to take this story kind of into your mind and your thoughts, and to celebrate that opportunity we have to elect our leaders. And I hope if you are doing like I did, an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot, I was actually able to kind of sit down and look at who the candidates were and do a little research on them online, and feel like I made a pretty informed choice. So I invite you to be informed and not surprised in the election, because you have that opportunity to do that. So I'd like to share with you this prayer. Holy One of Israel, King David worked hard to return the Ark of the Covenant to Israel so that the people could honor you in your house of worship. Receive our praise in this house of worship as we rejoice in your presence. Amen. And remember, you are God's chosen. Use it wisely. See you next week, and have a great one.